in Year 3. Today we're going to be comparing and ordering fractions. So on the screen you can see a fraction wall. This shows us all of the different fractions that we're going to be looking at today. As you can see, they are all different sizes depending on what the fraction is. As you can see, a half is split into 2 equal parts. It is bigger than a third because a third is split into 3 equal parts. Quarters are split into 4 equal parts, and so on as you go down the fraction wall. As you can see, 1/10 is much smaller than some of the fractions up here. A tenth is much smaller than a half. That's because it is split into more equal parts, so we know it is a smaller fraction. If you cut a cake in half and then you cut a cake into tenths, you would rather have the cake that had been cut into halves because then you would get a much bigger slice. So the bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. Can you repeat it with me? The bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. I now want you to have a look at 1/2 and 1/6. Which one is greater and which one is smaller? And then I want you to have a think, how do you know that? Pause the video now just to have a little think. So let's have a look. Halves are split into 2 equal parts. Sixths are split into 6 equal parts. If I look at my fraction wall, I can see that a half is greater because it's only split into 2 parts, and a sixth is smaller because it is split into more parts. Did you say the same? In this activity, you need to look at the 2 fractions that are given to you, and you need to put in the equality symbol to show whether it is greater than or less than. For this next part of your learning, we're going to be ordering these fractions. So we have got 1/9, which is here, and it's down here on our fraction wall. We've got 1/3, which is up here, 1/7, and 1/2. I want to put them in order from smallest to biggest. I know that the bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. So I'm going to look at all my denominators. I can see that 1/9 has got the biggest denominator. Let's look. 1/9 is the smallest fraction. So 1/9 is number 1. 1/3 though is quite a lot bigger than 1/9. So let's have a look at the other fractions. We've got 1/7 and 1/2. The bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. Well, 1/7 has got the next biggest denominator. Let's look. Oh, it's only a little bit bigger than 1/9. So 1/7 is going to be number 2. Okay, I'm left with 1/3 and 1/2. The bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. 1/3 has got a bigger denominator. Is 1/3 smaller than a half? Let's have a look. Here's a half and here is 1/3. 1/3 is definitely smaller than a half. So that one's going to be number 3. And finally, a half is going to be number 4 because it is the biggest fraction. For activity 2, you need to order the fractions using the fraction wall from smallest to biggest like we just did. When you have finished, unpause the video for the next bit of your learning. Okay, the next part of the video is looking at this word problem. There are 16 sweets in a bag. 2 girls share a bag equally between themselves, so we know they're sharing them between 2. 4 boys share a bag equally between themselves, so we know that They are sharing out 16 between 4 different people. We need to work out who is going to get the most sweets. Are the girls going to get the most sweets or the boys going to get the most sweets? So on the screen there is a little picture. Here are the sweets and here are the girls. We have looked and realised that we are splitting the sweets in half into 2 equal groups. We can see that 16 split into 2 equal groups gives us the answer of 8. So the girls are getting 8 sweets each. If we are splitting the sweets between 4 here, we are splitting them into quarters. We know that 1/4 of 16 just means 16 divided by 4, which means that each quarter will have 4 in. That means that every boy is going to have 4 sweets each. Remember, the bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. So 1/4 has got a bigger denominator and the boys have got less sweets. So it's clear that because the denominator is bigger, the fraction is actually smaller. So because the girls have got 8 each, they have got more sweets than the boys. For your final activity, you need to look at each fraction. You need to tell me how many are in each group, and then you need to compare the fractions using the greater than, less than, and equal to symbols. Remember, if you find it tricky, then give us an email and we will be able to help you.